welcome to the Q&A Cafe. We're back downstairs today at the Georgetown Club because it's a cold winter day, exactly. We just had Valentine's Day, and today it's February, spring's right around the corner, and it's a great time to talk about food, and I couldn't think of a better guest. I've been wanting to do something with Nora Pouillon
Yes.
for such a long time, and never knowing that at the time that Nora finally was a guest on the show, that it would be coinciding with you announcing that you are hanging up your toque. And we'll get to that, but welcome to the Q&A Cafe.
Oh, thank you.
It's wonderful to have you here as a guest. And as I said, Valentine's Day, and then today is, I'm going to get the name wrong, but many of the restaurants in the U.S. are closing today out of solidarity with immigrants. Mm-hmm. And I'm an immigrant, you're an immigrant, but you came here from Austria. Are you closing your restaurant today?
No, I think it's mostly the Hispanic restaurants, you know, that because that's what it was geared towards, the immigration thing.
Do you think it's a good thing, though, that they're doing this?
I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. Jose Andres, I think, closed 4 of his restaurants, but he didn't close the one that are not Hispanic. He didn't close Cetinia or the Chinese one, but he closed all the Jaleos and all the Yoamel, and I think it's wonderful that he does that.
I know when I owned Nathan's, it seemed that much of my kitchen staff was often Hispanic. I would like to think I would have closed today, but I'm not in the business anymore, as you and I have discussed many times.
You know, I think that I have a lot of Asian people too, and I think it's half and half Asian, half Latinos, as I call them, but I think they probably didn't even realize
that this was happening.
I would have had to tell them. And I tell you the truth, I have been so busy with Valentine's Day, as you were saying, that it didn't even, until this morning when I heard it, read it in the paper.
Well, Valentine's is a huge night in the restaurant business, Valentine's Day and Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And you're not open on Sundays, so it's really Valentine's Day. And did you have a feeling of sentiment that it might be your last Valentine's?
Oh my God, yeah. I still have the Christmas decoration on.
Because you don't want to let it go,
I don't want to let it go, and it's so beautiful. It makes the dining room look so cozy, you know. This year was really beautiful. The woman did a great job, and we have all these garlands going down and with gold things. And the only thing I did for Valentine's Day, I stuck in red roses.
Yeah.
So it's green, gold, and red.
Well, your dining room has always been a particularly attractive room, and a city of many attractive rooms. Yours has been a standout, and you've never changed it, really, not much.
Well, that's not true, you know. I mean, I don't know how many of you know, but I have been open for 38 years. So I opened in January 79, and at the beginning it was enormous posters of food markets. Mm-hmm. Food markets of France, actually, because in 79...
Was this something you took out of the attic? Was it your own art that you put up initially?
No. Actually, it was one investor who had them, and we had to send them to Texas.
You had to put something up, right?
Blow them up.
Yeah.
And then I decided, I think it's a really American restaurant, because my cuisine was from all over the world, and so I wanted to represent, I felt in America, folk art was really something that represented America. So that's how I started with folk art.
With the crib quilts.
Well, the crib quilts was then the next iteration. Before I had lots of plates, the slip plates and tools and, you know, everything that we could find in Pennsylvania or in West Virginia or Virginia. And so then after a while we decided it's too cluttered, it's too complicated to dust it. So we decided we should really do quilts, because by then I really loved quilts, I felt. And I started to deal with a lot of Amish farmers, and I felt these Amish crib quilts would really represent them.
I was always struck by the dramatic lighting of the dining room. You know, that, I wonder if for a lot of people reading that it was an organic restaurant, probably wondering what they were going to walk into, if it was going to be very crunchy granola and decor. But when in fact you walked in, it was very dramatic. very sophisticated, and romantic also. I've always.
Well, I think one of the big compliments, I mean, exactly what you said. You said you're wonderful of saying that, because that's the feedback I get from many of my customers, but many also say what they really appreciate is the noise level is very low.
A thing of the past. Really, it's harder and harder to find restaurants that use tablecloths.
Yeah.
And
I have wall-to-wall
we have
carpet.
tablecloths here, and think about the soundproofing of the room.
Yeah.
Having owned a restaurant, I understand some of it because I know tablecloths are expensive, and it's easier to not have them.
Yeah.
But
Well, we do our own laundry because I'm so into sustainability that most of the services use a lot of bleach and not biodegradable detergent, and
Right.
so we always did our own laundry. I have in the basement an enormous roller that
organic
irons.
through and through.
I wouldn't the tablecloths, unfortunately. We used to have organic tablecloths, and it had a lot of hemp in it, and so it makes it very stiff.
Yeah.
And the laundry woman said, if you don't change the tablecloth, she's quitting. So I did, but we did. When we talked about soundproofing, we put even soundproof panels behind the quilts. And we put soundproof panels on the ceiling,
Yeah.
and we put a soundproof panel on the tables. So because
so
we felt
important.
it was really important.
It's so important, and I imagine it makes your restaurant very popular with spies.
I don't know about
You can
that.
actually talk quietly.
I'm in the kitchen. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I have a feeling what I'm about to do is going to be happening to you a lot, and that people are going to share with you why you matter to them, why your restaurant mattered to them. Because I remember when I closed Nathan's, people started, and I announced it not as far in advance as you have, but still I tried to announce it far enough in advance so that people who love the place could come and experience it. And I'm sure that's happening with you, but since my son is sitting right here, I mean, my husband and I first started going when you first opened. Friends of ours from the country took us, and we loved it. But I remember, for me in particular, going to your restaurant the night I found out I was pregnant. So that's a very special memory that I will always have. And then when my husband unfortunately died and I inherited his restaurant, and I was desperate for a chef, I got in touch with Nora. And I said, I need a chef. And you mentioned a young man named Paul Wahlberg.
Mm-hmm.
And I hired Paul, and he was a wonderful chef. And you should take some pride in this too, because Paul's now gone back to Massachusetts, where he started a hamburger chain called Wahlburgers. He now has a hit reality TV show called Wahlburgers.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And he's about to open a Wahlburgers on DuPont Circle.
Oh, that's great. And are they organic?
He wants to make lots of money.
That's
But so you must have many people who've worked with you who come and tell you that story of where they are now, thanks to their beginning with you.
well, they do, but I have a lot of people also that are influenced. You know, that unfortunately not enough so that they want to take over the restaurant.
Yeah, well, you have a very high bar.
Yeah.
Because, and I want you to talk about this, that deciding to become organic isn't as simple as just saying we're organic. In fact, I think that's one of the big misunderstandings about organic. It's not just a word that you put on food
the menu.
or cuisine. Talk about deciding to become an organic restaurant before anybody had ever even used the word in relation to a restaurant.
Well, actually, that's my life story. And you can read about it if you buy my book. I have to put in this little advertisement. I wrote a
Advertise
biography.
away.
I wrote a biography. It was published 2 years ago by Knopf, called "How Imaginative: My Organic Life." I didn't make up the title. Once you signed, you have nothing to say anymore. They sort of you're a prisoner. So it was really health reasons. When I came to this country in the late 60s, I realized that people here are unhealthy. I'm Austrian, if you have probably discovered by now. And my kids make fun of me and say I sound like Arnold. And
You might take over The Apprentice after you get out of the restaurant business.
so, well,
You never
maybe.
know, Nora.
You never know. But so I felt that also people didn't take responsibility about their health. And when I got into food, because I was married to a Frenchman, and he wants, you know how French people are, they want good food and good wine. And so I had to quickly learn how to cook, and he didn't want Wonder Bread, he wanted baguette. He didn't want to have...
But you grew up on a farm also. It's not like the first time you were exposed to the art of cooking was with your husband. You grew up in a family where you were eating out of the earth every day, correct?
Well, I grew up on the farm, but very shortly, only from the day I was born, because I was born during the war. So my father leased a farm in the mountains of Tyrol, and I was there from age 0 or 1 to age 3, and then I came there every vacation until I was 10.
Right, but
and that influenced me a lot. And my mother was
your
a
mother
great
was
cook, a great cook, and my father was really into health. I mean, you had to exercise, you had to go out there, you had to learn, you know, ski and sled and ice skate and hike and mushroom hunting and play tennis, where I was terrible. You know, you had to do outdoor activities and eat a lot of fruit and vegetables.
And the eating helped shape you. I mean, the eating helped shape who you would become.
Of course, and I think you don't realize it's only when you get older how much, you know, actually your upbringing and your family life in your first years have an influence on your life later. It's sort of in your
Do you think
brain.
that's important for a chef, that what happens to you in your youth? I mean, there's all different kinds of ways that people become chefs in our era. There's school taught or self-taught. You're self-taught. But do you find in knowing chefs in your own experience and the chefs you admire and respect, do you find out that food was part of their formative years? That when they were growing
all
up
the
as
European
children?
chefs, definitely. And yeah, I mean, you can hear it. I mean, I don't know that many chefs, but when you hear them talk, they always say, you know, I saw my grandmother cook, or my grandmother made that. Or especially Italian chefs, you know, that do Mario Batali or even Nick from Masseria. I mean, I just saw him the other day. And it was, you know, it's the family, and most of the time it's the grandmother, because, you know,
she had time to cook.
She had time to cook, and she knew still how to cook, probably, the mother. But I think it has a lot to do with how you grow up. I think people, maybe it's also the opposite. People that never had good food at home, they want to learn how to do it themselves and want and have the business to do it.
But and not to overuse the word, but it's almost an organic experience for you, and how you came to make food part of your life professionally, because it was what you knew. It was second nature to you.
Except at that time it was not called organic, and it was just the natural thing you could get. I mean, that's how you ate. You ate things that were grown without any additives and were not processed, and you just, you know, went to the market every day, or you went to the garden and bought your lettuce. My mother went to a gardener to bought her lettuce, but that's what I did. But, you know, really the aha moment came when I came here, and by surprise I found out all the additives that I added to food. And it's quite a funny story that by then I had a cooking school and a catering business, and I wanted to buy more wholesale. So at that time there was no Google, so I had to look at the yellow pages. And I looked at the yellow pages on the farm, on the beef farm, and there was a farm listed on the Eastern Shore, and I thought, well, that's not so far away. I can go there and pick up my beef. And so I called the woman up, and the woman said, and I said, what kind of meat do you have and how do you sell it? And she said, oh, I had the best meat ever. It's Angus beef, and I gave it, you know, hormones and corn. I give them, no, first she said, I give them corn so that they get really fattened up, and so they have a lot of marbling, and they are like taste like butter. And I said, corn, you know, I mean, where I grew up, you know, they didn't give corn, they only used hay or grass, and hay in the winter, grass in the summer. And she said, oh no, I know. And I said, how can they digest corn? And she said, well, I give them antibiotics, and then I give them growth promoting hormones so that they eat a lot of the corn. And I just was I just was so surprised that was accepted.
Yeah.
That basically that antibiotics that we are supposed to take when we are really very sick, that they give it to the animals.
We're getting them whether we want them or not.
I know. And all the hormones
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
And then I looked, I just couldn't believe it, so I looked more in the yellow pages, and I saw a sign that said natural beef from Pennsylvania. So I called up the farmer, it was Mr. Koenig, and he said that he could sell me, and he will call me up when he will come to Washington. And so I got the phone call, and he said, meet me at 3 o'clock at Chevy Chase Circle. And I said, okay. And so I went there, and he said also the side street where. And so I went there, and there were already all the station wagons waiting.
It was a farmer's market, right?
No, there was nothing.
No,
That
nothing.
farmer's market didn't exist.
Just your dealer. Your dealer.
There was nothing. There
Your
were
meat
just,
dealer.
There were just women in station wagon waiting for the farmer to come. And he came in a pickup truck, and he jumped out, and he opened the back door, and he screamed names, and women opened the door of the station wagon and jumped out and took their styrofoam box and ran back to the car. And everybody did that, and so I went there too, and I said to the woman, I mean, why do you buy this meat? And she said, well, my husband had cancer, and that's the only thing that he can really eat is clean food.
Is the organic meat.
Is clean food, and so they all, you know, this whole thing was done like in 5-10 minutes. I mean, it was like a drug deal.
Exactly,
you know?
your meat dealer.
And I thought, this is really strange. I mean, there we get healthy food, and we have to hide it, and you know, conventional food full
But
of
tell me this: did it feel lonely to you to start this path of doing this type of cuisine that wasn't part of the popular restaurant language?
Of course, you know, everybody thought I was nuts.
So what made you so obstinate?
Crazy.
Where did you find the stubbornness to stick with it? Is that just your nature, or?
Well, first of all, I really believe strong in health. I think my dad and my grandmothers, both of them, said to me, you know, health is the most important thing you have in your life, and you better preserve it, because no money in the world can buy it for you. And you know, he was really very serious saying that, and I think he's absolutely right. And so I thought, for me to preserve my health was always very important, and when I had a family, it was very important that I do the same for my family. And then when I decided to have a cooking class and to have a restaurant, I decided I have to do the same for my customers. I can't kill my customers, and I stay alive. So I decided.
Were your cooking classes sold to people as organic cooking?
Well, it was just at the beginning when I found out about it. It was in the early 70s, and it was really more to teach people how to cook. It was called the Low Budget Gourmet, and I told them how to feed a family of 4 for $50 a week.
Were you teaching basically European techniques, French techniques?
Yes, European technique, that you use everything, that you buy whole chickens and you cut them up yourself, and with the breast you make one dish, and with the leg you make another dish, and the liver you make a pate, and with the leg...
You know who else had a cooking class in Washington, don't you?
No, who?
Julia Child.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she did home cooking right here in Georgetown. That's what she did when before she became the French chef. She liked to cook, and her husband said, well, you ought to give cooking lessons. And so she started giving cooking lessons at home in a house on Olive Street.
That must have been the early 60s, no?
I think it was earlier than that,
oh,
actually.
50s,
yeah, it may have been that. But and this is such an interesting thing about your story, is that you're doing this cooking class and you're doing the catering, and then the next thing, you become the chef at the Tabard Inn, which is a mainstream restaurant, and you go in and do this job with no restaurant experience, no chef experience. You've basically been a person who grew up loving to cook, cooking for your family, cooking for your husband, and then teaching cooking. And you walk into a restaurant and take on this job.
Well,
Whatever made you think you could do that?
I guess perseverance. But I never even thought I could not do it because I was used to cook for lots of people. Because we entertain a lot and we shared beach houses with many people. I always cook. I mean, I never cooked for 50 and 100, but I cooked regularly for 15 to 20.
Right.
So I didn't.
But a restaurant's so many other things.
I know, but first of all, it didn't have a kitchen. It was not a restaurant. Fritzi and Edward had just bought it. It was an officer service club, and they hired me to put in the kitchen to put in the restaurant. Mm-hmm. And Fritzi actually did the restaurant, the decor, everything, and I did the kitchen. And we started slowly. She asked me, I told her I have never done a restaurant before, so she said we start slowly. Let's start with. I had to serve breakfast, but her breakfast, I think it cost like $4, mm-hmm. and for $4 you got endless coffee or tea, orange juice, croissants, apples, and hard-boiled eggs, and toast.
And were you responsible for every meal?
I was responsible for the breakfast and for lunch. Mm-hmm. I started with lunch. Mm-hmm. And only after we had lunch for 2 months, I think, we went into dinner. So I could also go in a slow learning curve, but it was tough. And actually, before I did the Tabard Inn, a friend of mine was cooking at a little bar in Adams Morgan on Columbia Road, and she asked me.
What was the name of it?
Cafe Dawn. Mm-hmm. It was. Such a dive. It was. You've got to start somewhere, right? I mean, I was supposed to be a short order cook. I had no idea what that meant, and people were screaming, "Where's my burger? Where's my burger?" Because I took forever. I just really did everything. Toasted the bun, and
but that must have taught you some very important lessons that you used as you went on, right? I mean, as unglamorous as it, what? You have to be fast, you have to be focused, you have to have a system.
Yeah. You have to do a lot of prep ahead, I was just making the herb, everything, to order, and it took forever. But yes, that you have to be very organized and do a lot of prep ahead of time. So there's basically what you see in cooking shows, they just go here and just go here and just go here, and they throw it together. And you have to do the same thing when you cook. I mean, you have to chop and to clean and to do everything.
On the cooking shows, what I love about the cooking shows is how much is already prepared for them.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the same at
and that is. So that would make me wonder, what I'm sure you've been asked this by so many young people wanting to have careers as chefs, and especially since you're self-taught. Mm-hmm. What is the advice that you give a person who comes to you? And do you have people who do stages with you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what is the criteria to be able to do a stage with Nora Pouillon?
Well, they're different. I give internships I'm part of the Women Chefs and Restaurateur and the Dame d'Escoffier, and they ask me if I would do internships. So there are people that are already professionals or that want to learn about organic, or people that have other profession and want to become chefs, and they spend a week with me. And I do that, and then I have also people, when I give out gift certificate, they want to know if they can spend a day in the kitchen, so I have people like that too. But the advice I give them is to exactly do that, spend time in a kitchen, because many people don't realize how physically it is hard work. Not lifting pots or things like this, but just standing on your feet all day long and doing the same motion a lot, like chopping for hours or cleaning for hours, or it's just and then the pressure when the service comes, everything has to be perfect and ready, and you have to move fast and you have to do it, you know, consistent, and you cannot run out of things. And then, you know, it's just the pressure of, it's like an actor.
Well,
You have
yes,
to
actor or
perform.
juggling.
Yeah.
You've got to. But so when people come into you and apply for jobs,
No, let me finish that. The other thing I tell them, you need good partners. I think because you cannot cook and buy the food and, you know, have the philosophy and do all the presentation and do everything, and at the same time deal with the lawyer, deal with the plumber, with the electrician, with the, you know, with the roofer, with the neighbor.
you need a good
with,
business partner.
You know, everything else, it's impossible. You need working partners.
Yeah.
I think that's very
So you can
important.
be creative.
Yeah, and you can really concentrate on your part of the deal. I've been partners with my partners, Stephen and Thomas D'Amato, for 40 years. And it only lasted so long because each one of us has their responsibility. One is responsible for the dining room and for all the accounting. One is responsible for the wine list and all the lawyers and all the maintenance.
And that is a
I'm
job.
responsible for the kitchen and the kitchen staff and the food.
So, but back to what I was asking, then in your kitchen, because you probably do the hiring in the kitchen, not your partners. When somebody comes in to apply for a job for you, with you, given your own experience, are you very open-minded about whether they have schooling or no schooling? I mean, what do you want to do? Do they have to do a test? Do they have to cook for you? Is it just a resume? Is it a look in their eye? Is it a way they talk?
It's all of the above, and it really depends. Most of the people, what I like is that first of all, I interview them, I talk with them, I ask where they have worked before. I never call up and other restaurants and ask them how this person was, because nobody tells you ever the truth.
That's so true.
They always say, "Oh, he was great," but everybody's so afraid of being sued.
Right,
so
right.
They don't tell you, "Oh, I fired him because
He was a drunk. No, they don't.
oh,
You find that out on your own.
Yeah, exactly. So then I talk with them and I see the personality. I try to explain to them the philosophy of the restaurant,
Yeah.
about organic food, about dealing with farmers, that it's very different from conventional. I think it's a lot of work and it needs a lot of sensibility, because, you know, farmers, they raise the food for you. And then I ask them to look at the menu. And many of them have already. I asked them, when I talk with them on the phone, I tell them to look at our website and look at the menu. And when we sit down, I sit down every day with my sous chefs and my chef, and we sit down and we change the menu, we go over the menu. And so I asked them to pick an appetizer and a main course that they would like to make their own. And then after we had talked for a while, and so they tell me what they would do for an appetizer, and then they tell me, I tell them, you can go in the walk-in, you know, that's the refrigerator, to see what we have for vegetables.
Sounds like Top Chef.
What I have for vegetables, and then you come back and you tell me what you want to do. And you know, sometimes they come up with great ideas, sometimes they come up with terrible ideas. So I tell them, you know, we don't use butter or cream in our food. And not too much salt and no sugar. So you have to rely really on the flavors of the product. And I say I spend a lot of money on my product, that they have a lot of flavor, but you have, you know, citrus and you have herbs and spices, and sometimes they just give you a piece of meat and a sauce and one beautiful carrot and one beautiful piece of bean or something, and then I say, you know, in this restaurant I give 3 vegetables and the portions that you're supposed to have, and you try to make it look nice. I mean, it's not a painting, it is food actually that you're supposed to consume. So our protein is on the smaller side, and we always have 3, if not 4 vegetables, 1 starch and 2 fresh vegetables. And so many of them are like taken back. I had people say, you know, I can't cook like that, or that's not what I want to do. I'm like a chef, you know. You know, they want to do their foams and they want to do their
I know.
their
Yes, I
beurre
know, I know.
monté, you know, and their beurre blanc, and they want to do everything looks like it's a pyramid, and so you know, sometimes it works and they feel what I do is interesting and they change their mind, but sometimes it doesn't. Often, you know, the chef turnover, as you probably know, is very fast. I mean,
And it's heartbreaking when you find the person who you really like and rely on,
Yeah.
and actually is able to channel what it is you believe in, and then they leave. That's the
I know,
hardest
but
thing.
it's even more heartbreaking. They leave and they do conventional food and don't do any organic.
Any organic.
food.
But think of the lessons they learned.
Yeah. And then they're proud to tell me that they use organic lettuce or they use, you know, natural chicken or, you know, that. But, you know,
Given your high standards of being organic and the fact that you had to get certified, that you know it's not just you decided to call yourself organic, you had to prove it to an organization and get the certification. How do you feel when you walk into a store like Whole Foods and organic is just slapped around everywhere? Do you believe it?
Oh yeah, I believe it, but I'm amazed how little is organic.
Yeah, less and less.
Especially now. I mean, now I know it's the in-between season, you know, and California had a lot of terrible weather. So, but you know, I just go ask for the manager and say, you know, especially in the fruit and vegetable department, I say, you know, you have hardly anything organic here. I mean, I'm coming here for the organic. I might as well go to Safeway.
I'm sure they have a camera, and Nora Pouillon walks into Whole Foods, and somebody tells the manager, Nora's just walked in, well, I've got to go to the bank, so she's looking for me. So is it true that you were asked to be White House chef?
Well, it's sort of half true. I was asked if I would consider being White House chef, and I'm not American, so that was
And who
all.
was the president who asked?
It was the Clintons.
The Clintons?
Yeah.
Well, they were regular customers
Yeah.
of yours.
Well, yeah, but they lived just up the street, so it was easier. Well, once they were not in the White House.
Right.
They came actually more once. When he came, he came.
It's
two or three
easier to go
times.
out once you're no longer president. Actually, it's not.
Not anymore now, but then it was.
But let's say you had become White House chef. What would you have done? Would you have made the kitchen
Probably
organic?
killed myself.
Would you have made the kitchen
I
organic?
could have never done it. I mean, I could have done it with really good help, like somebody who has worked there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's why she was thinking about getting me, because she thought it would be sort of diet food and would help her to stay healthy and slim.
Is organic food diet food?
Well, if you really take it seriously, yes, because that's one of the philosophies, that the food has so much more flavor and nutritional value that you don't have to eat so much. But you know, unfortunately, most people don't eat until they are not hungry anymore. They just eat because they want to eat. You know,
Yeah.
they don't ask themselves, am I still hungry,
Yeah.
or should I eat more? No. But it is, I mean, really some things when you eat, I mean, if I eat a main course at Nora's, just a main course, I'm full.
Right. It's very, yeah, it is, well, it's delicious food. I mean, I was upset when you stopped serving lunch, though. Do you remember when you served lunch?
Yes.
It was a long, long time ago.
I even served brunch.
Did you serve brunch?
I think the first 2 or 3 years we were open all the time because we had to. Actually, somebody that, Lisa, when did you start working at Nora's?
In 1980.
1980.
80.
Well, you see, so she was probably the second hostess
I think so, yes.
that we had.
And I say it was the best job I ever had.
Thank you. See, there you go.
And then it was.
And she probably has a hit reality TV show now too, right? Have you done any of the food shows like Top Chef? Have they had?
No, I was a judge.
Right, but you've participated.
Yeah.
Not as a
They
contestant.
asked me if I would be part of the Master Chefs. Maybe they asked me like 4 years ago or 5 years. And I said, you're a little late asking me. I mean, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would have loved it.
It didn't exist
5
then.
years ago, but now I'm, you know, in my late 60s. You must be kidding.
Oh, that's what.
And then I asked some of the Cindy Paulson who did it, and she's younger than me, maybe by 10 years, but she was on it, and she looked quite flustered. And I said to her, "How did you like it? What do you think I should have done it?" And she said, "You know, Nora, you should have just done it. Nobody remembers what you cooked, if you won, or if you lost, if you looked like a jerk. Everybody only remembers
That
you
you
were
did
top
it.
chef."
Right. That is.
So, but when
There's
she-
still time. You're going to be semi-retired soon. I can't imagine.
now I have the time actually.
No, I can't. I think you should get in touch with him, and because believe me, age is not a factor with you at all. So, but speaking of age, funny segue. Your career spans from hippies to hipster trends in the food business, and there's no question the hipster moment has had a huge impact, particularly in DC. I mean, we have a burgeoning, lively, interesting restaurant industry, and you could see where a lot of it, in its own way, goes back to you. A lot of what the hipster trends represent, and I don't really like to use that word because it's something bigger than that, but what do you see that you like that is happening in the young restaurants around Washington today?
I think you're right when you said I influence many people. I influenced many people. I think I also gave courage to women to be in that industry.
I was going to get into that,
because
yes.
there are not many women in that industry. And I inspired and organized the first producer-only farmers market in Washington, D.C., which is DuPont Circle market, and which
Thriving
has
today.
now 14 different markets, and now in the bigger Washington area are 38 markets. I mean, think about it, 20 years ago there was not one producer-only farmers market. People always said, "Oh, I'm going to the Eastern market," but there were just stalls of
the
people.
same food
And
that- yeah.
there was a farmers market in Adams Morgan, but he sold oranges and bananas, and we know we don't grow oranges and bananas locally. So I think it was not really a producer farmers market. So I organized bus tour. I called up every chef I knew in Washington, and then there were not that many. You know, 20 years ago there were not that many, and not like now. You know, now there are
Well, see,
thousands
what you were doing then is what today they call farm to table.
Well, I organized.
Don't you
They
think?
had no, yeah.
Don't
they
you
had,
think?
Yeah, because they had no idea. I organized bus trips. The chefs met Monday morning at front of the restaurant, and the bus. We hired a little bus, and the bus took them out to the farms in Pennsylvania, to the Amish organic farms I dealt with, and showed them what they grew, how they farm, and you basically had a dialogue with the chefs, because most of the chefs had no idea that
Right.
there is such things as a local food. You know, if you're a conventional chef, you just pick up in the evening the telephone, and you have perhaps 3 purveyors you deal with. The one who does all your proteins, you know, your chickens and your meat, and many of them do even also fish, but maybe also a fish purveyor, and the other one who does the produce, and somebody who does dry goods. So you just leave a message on the machine and say, tomorrow bring me,
All
you
of
know,
this.
10,
Right.
10 steaks, you know,
Yeah.
8 ounces each, and bring me like airplane fly, whatever they call this, chicken breast or whatever.
Airplane breast. I always thought that was a terrible name for
Yeah, I
a
know.
piece of food, you know? I mean, really didn't make me want to serve. Where do you like to eat in Washington?
So let me tell you, and then the next morning it's just on their front steps.
Right, exactly.
And I deal with like 35 different purveyors and farmers. They all have different
It's
deliveries.
complicated.
They have all different delivery dates. They all have different minimums. They
Yeah.
all call me up and say, well, it's too cold, the chicken didn't eat, or it's too hot, and the chicken eat, and the chicken is only 2.5 pounds and not 3 pounds and not 3.5 pounds, and my arugula was
Right.
eaten up by the flea beetles, and so it goes on all the time. So
Which is probably why you want to become semi-retired. but when you go out to eat in Washington, where do you go?
Oh, I go to restaurants where I know the chefs a lot, or I like everybody, to new restaurants.
But what are some of your favorites of the new crop?
I like, actually, many people say it's so expensive, but for what we get, it's not. I really like the pearl and pineapple. I like the all-purpose. I like Dabney. I like Masseria. I mean, I like all these new people. They all do their own little things, and it's
Reminds you of yourself, right?
yeah. I mean, they try to go back to the original way, or the natural way of cooking, and they all do things. They have realized that the only way to really make money in the restaurant business is to have a big bar, big bar,
Right.
little
But even
food.
the drinks have taken on, if not an organic, an artisanal
Yes.
approach, which is something.
Yeah, we
that-
sell now gin and whiskey at the farmers market,
Yeah,
and it's made here in Washington.
and that was one of the things about organics. Is your wine list only organic also?
No, well, first of all, in America there is no certification for wine, and what we try to buy wine where the grapes are grown organically, because that's, I think, really the most important thing. But many of the wines, they have to use a sulfur to stabilize the wine.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if it travels across the country, it would taste very
It'd be
different.
impossible for you to have a wine list if it had to meet the standards of your food, right?
Well, maybe if the local people would do organic wine, but the climate here is so bad,
Yeah.
that the fungicides, they have all the use terrible amount of fungicide. I went once to visit a winery in Maryland, and when I drove in, there was this barn, and on the barn was this big sign, of the skull and the bone,
Crossbones, yeah.
And then I thought, oh my God! And then I drove in, and then I spoke with the vineyard owner, and I asked him, now, how many pesticides you have to use, and what pesticide you use, and how often do you have to use them? And he looked at me and said, you name it, I do it. And I have to spray up to 14 times.
If you were, let's just say hypothetically, you sell your business and you're home for a few weeks and realize you're kind of like to get back into it. If you could just start a new business again today, what would it be? What would it be? Would it be a cafe that only served lunch? Would it be a coffee shop? Would it be a breakfast? I mean, what would be if you were going to open another restaurant that wasn't your tablecloth fine dining restaurant that you have now?
Well, I always wanted to do an organic McDonald's. I mean, what I
I
think,
love this. I love this.
I feel that I love hamburgers. I think it's a great way of eating. It's just the meat has to be, something really,
Edible.
something good, and the bun, not this squishy little thing that's like cotton, but something that's nutritional, that has perhaps some seeds in it and is like sourdough, but something that you actually can digest, and gives you some nourishment, and then perhaps have in there the mayonnaise that doesn't have sugar in it.
What do you do about the French fries?
I think French fries are okay. I love French fries.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
you don't have to eat like this much. Like when you go in the store, I mean, the first time I went here to a grocery store, I thought, oh my God, these potato chips, and they look, and French, it looks like pillowcases. I mean, so big. Who
Yeah.
has even the space in the cupboard
Yeah.
to put it in? But
Nora's
anyway.
Burgers has a ring to it, though, don't you think?
Well, no, the other thing I thought I always wanted to do, but my partners didn't want to do it, is for a while all these gas stations were for sale here in Washington. And I always felt I wanted to take over a gas station and just have not do gas, but I thought it was just so wonderful for drive in and drive through. So I thought I would have just chicken and salmon and all the condiments with it, chicken soup also and fish soup, and potato salad and other salad. And then you could then fax in what you want, and on your way to work you could pick up your lunch, and
That's
the
an
way
idea.
out you could pick out your dinner. And I thought it would be easy, and they could fax in what they want and their name, and
Sounds like a future to me. I hope an entrepreneur is listening and calls you up and you get new investors and you get to do that. But unfortunately, our time is up. It goes pretty fast.
Oh,
doesn't it?
wow.
Can you
Wow,
believe it?
fire
Yeah.
that to pleasure.
But it's been a wonderful discussion. It's been great having you on. I thank you all for coming to the Q&A Cafe, for watching us at home and on your platforms, YouTube, every other way you find us, podcasts. And we look forward to the next show. Thank you, Nora.
Okay.